Radhe Radhe. On behalf of Radha Madhav Dham, I welcome you all for this family camp, and we are very fortunate to have Sushree Diwakari Devi Ji giving us a lecture today. And let me give a brief intro of her. Sushree Diwakari Devi Ji studied the deepest philosophy of all our Sanskrit scriptures and the devotional music under the guidance of Jagadguru Shree Kripaluji Maharaj, and received the Vaishnav sanyas in the year 1996. Since then, she has been providing inspiring satsangs throughout US and other countries such as New Zealand, Ireland, etc. Devi Ji's charming and uplifting speeches awaken the mind and stir the soul, while her Nam Sankirtan enters deep in the hearts of listeners, inspiring them with devotion for Radha Krishna. I request all of you to please listen to her lecture very attentively and kindly switch off your cell phones or put them in silence mode. Thank you. Radhe Radhe.
श्रीमद् सद्गुरु सरकार की, श्रीमद् युगल सरकार की। ध्यान मूलम गुरोर्मूर्तिः पूजामूलं गुरोर्पदम् मन्त्रमूलं गुरोर्वाक्यम् भक्तिमूलं गुरोर्कृपा। कस्तूरी तिलकं ललाटपटले वक्षःस्थले कौस्तुभम् नासाग्रे वरमौक्तिकं करतले वेणुः करे कङ्कणम् सर्वाङ्गे हरिचन्दनं सुललितं कण्ठे च मुक्तावली गोपस्त्री परिवेष्टितो विजयते गोपाल चूडामणिः नयनं गलदश्रुधारया वदनं गद्गद रुद्धया गिरा पुलकैर्निचितं वपुः कदा तव नाम ग्रहणे भविष्यति यो ब्रह्माणं विदधाति पूर्वं यो वै वेदांश्च प्रहिणोति तस्मै तग्वंह देवमात्मबुद्धिप्रकाशम् मुमुक्षुर्वै शरणमहं प्रपद्ये. Please join me in chanting the divine names for a few minutes. Bhajo Giridhar Govind Gopala Bhajo Giridhar Govind Bhajo Giridhar Govind Gopala 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 Bhajo Giridhar Govind Gopala
Gopala.
Shrimad Sadguru Sarkar ki. Respected devotees of Shri Maharaji, respected viewers, I would like to extend a warm greeting and welcome to each and every one of you to Sri Radha Madhav Dham for this winter sadhana shivir. While we all have traveled from various distances, from various places, the one purpose / goal that brings us all together here in Sri Radharani's divine abode is devotion. We have all gathered here for sadhana, to enrich our bhakti, our dedication, our surrender to Hari and Guru. And just as in the world, before a building is constructed, a foundation is laid. Similarly, in bhakti, in devotion, we desire to build, to construct a castle of bhakti. So, what is the foundation? The foundation is dinata, humbleness, humility. Can also be interpreted as sentiments of insignificance, subservience. Saints tell us that each and every one of us, each and every soul in this world who is bound by Maya has done uncountable sins and uncountable good deeds in their uncountable past lifetimes. However, the effect of the sinfulness on the mind is deeper and stronger as compared to the goodness in general. And so this situation creates a negativity and a vanity that crushes feelings of humbleness or humility. And feelings of humbleness bring us closer to our divine beloved. So vanity and egoism, any trace, even a shred of vanity, pride, ego, whether it's devoutness of sacrifice or austerity, or religious sanctity, whatever it may be, any trace of pride, it takes us away from God. And feelings of humbleness bring us closer. It is the vanity of our mind that resists and hesitates to accept our sinful reality. And so it has to be subdued, softened, and dissolved with the gradual development of humbleness, faith, love, and dedication to God and Guru. Our beloved Gurudev Jagadguru Shree Kripalu Maharaj has revealed 11,111 blissfully potent dohas or couplets in one of his compositions called Radha Govinda Geet. And in the Radha Govinda Geet, in these couplets, they depict the magnificence of the philosophy of divine love realization. To evoke and help build our humbleness, which is the very foundation of our bhakti, our sadhana. And also to deepen our loving faith with a feeling of positive affinity, a feeling of positive, intimate affinity, I should say, for our divine beloved, Sri Radha Krishna. As souls aspiring for perfect love on this path of bhakti and devotion, Sri Maharaji tells us that out of the uncountable names of Sri Krishna, there is one that is of particular importance to us, and that is his title, Deen Bandhu. Sri Krishna is Deen Bandhu. Deen, humble. Bandhu, friend. दीनों में दीन हूँ मैं, गोविंद राधे, तू है दीन बंधु मोही, बंधु बना दे. I'm sure that we have thought about this during the course of our practice of sadhana, coming to Radha Madhav Dham, even doing our personal sadhana in our homes, and appreciating and realizing the treasures of divine love that Sri Maharaji have bestowed upon us, that all of Sri Maharaji's compositions, kirtans, are conversational. We, the soul, aspiring for divine love, we, by means of those kirtans and even these dohas or couplets, we are conversing. A dialogue between the soul and the Supreme Soul God. So these dohas that I'm about to chant are essentially a dialogue between us and Sri Krishna. So this doha depicts the sentiment. Oh, Sri Krishna, I am the greatest destitute, and you are the friend of destitutes. Oh, Sri Krishna, so please make me one of your friends. Tu to hai deen bandhu Govind Radhe Trin te adhik mohi deen bana de. O Shri Krishna, you are Deen Bandhu. You are the friend of humble souls. You are the friend of destitutes. Please make me humbler than a blade of grass. Deen Bandhu Tera Naam Govind Radhe मेरे बनी जाओ ऐसी उर्दीनता दे. Oh Shri Krishna, you're the holder of the title, the name Dina Bandhu, friend of destitutes, friend of humble souls. So please inspire my heart with such humility that you become mine forever. Forever. मैं हूँ अति दीनहीन गोविंद राधे दीन बंधु नाम वाला विरद निभा दे. O Shri Krishna, I am extremely fallen, sinful, and therefore I'm a destitute. So please grace me and do justice to your title, Dina Bandhu. Your Dina Bandhu, please do justice to your divine name by gracing me, O Shri Krishna. So in this way, Shri Maharaji has revealed these very supercharged, devotionally inspiring dohas to uplift us from our fallen state. Shri Maharaji further enlightens us with a deeper understanding of humbleness based on the divine teachings of Shri Gauranga Mahaprabhu, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ji. During his 32 years on this earth over 500 years ago, Shri Gauranga Mahaprabhu graced this earth with his divine teachings in the form of 8 verses known as the Shikshashtak or Ashtapadi. And the 4th verse of Ashtapadi, in this verse, Mahaprabhu Ji has outlined or described the qualifications of an aspiring devotee, a one who is aspiring for the love of Sri Radha Krishna. Trinadapi sunichena tarorapi sahishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniyah sada harihi. तृण से अधिक नम्र गोविंद राधे तरु से भी अधिक सहिष्णु बना दे. राधा गोविंद गीत. सबको दू सम्मान गोविंद राधे आप मान चाहू नहीं ऐसा बना दे. Radha Govind Geet. So Sri Maharaji translated this verse of Mahaprabhu Ji in the Radha Govind Geet. So Trinadapi Suni Chena, Mahaprabhuji says that a devotee should be as humble as a blade of grass. Tarorapi Sahishnuna, and forgiving as a tree. Amanina manadena kirtaniyah sadaharihi. A devotee should not be looking for praise or compliments, but rather have respect for others. In this way, a devotee should sadaharihi, kirtaniyah sadaharihi, always and at all times chant the divine name, the divine names of Sri Krishna, while absorbing his mind in the leelas and the grace and kindness of Sri Krishna. You see, when we crush grass, when we're walking on grass and we crush it under our feet, it never protests. A person finds a tree and appreciates, oh wow, such nice fruits. I'll pick some and cut a few branches for firewood. We people, we plunder trees, and yet the trees, they never grumble. Instead, in every season, they offer shelter, fruits, shade. So Mahaprabhuji, through this verse, is telling us that we, the aspiring one, should be more humbler than a blade of grass, and more forgiving than a tree. Why? Because we have been endowed with intellect, buddhi, intelligence. We're knowledgeable. We have knowledge. We're superior to other living forms in existence. This is what Mahaprabhuji advised. So when people hear these lines, they consider these lines or these teachings of Mahaprabhuji to be an exaggeration. But it is not so. It has to be like that. However, for our consolation, these teachings, or the inherent message meaning of these verses, or this verse, is the ultimate limit of humbleness. It's the epitome of humility. So having respect for others without seeking personal compliments, being humble and forgiving, all of these can be summed up in one word, and that is humbleness. It is the very foundation of devotion. Devotion starts, stays, and develops on the basis of humility. Any touch of vanity or pride spoils it, just like a pinch of salt would spoil a sweet pudding. So even the smallest touch of vanity or pride, it indicates self-conceit, and it inhibits devotion. That's what it does. While humbleness, it develops dedication to one's spiritual master and attracts the grace of Sri Radha Krishna. So let us try to understand these 2 points with the help of examples. And these examples, by the way, will also serve as a benchmark for all of us. So first of all, the first point, vanity and pride, as I mentioned, indicates self-conceit and it inhibits devotion. Once Sri Krishna was having his meal, and after eating a couple of morsels of food, he suddenly got up and hastily rushed to the entrance of his palace. But soon thereafter, he returned disappointed. So Rukmini Ji asked, she inquired, "My lord, leaving your plate, what was that rush all about? And why do you return with such gloom over your face?" So Sri Krishna replied, "One of my devotees was passing through the kingdom with no clothes on, merrily singing and chanting my name on his instrument. Assuming him to be crazy and insane, people were mocking him. They were throwing stones at him. And he, on the other hand, was intoxicated with chanting and singing my divine name. He was bleeding. His head was bleeding. He was helpless. And so I had to run." So Rukmini Ji asked, "Then why did you come back? Why did you return?" So Sri Krishna said that as soon as I reached the entrance, I saw that he set his instrument down just then and he reached for a stone. He decided to respond to the abuse with his own free will. He needs me no longer. He needs me no longer. If only he had waited for me. If only he could have trusted me, I would have been there for him. Our situation is the same. At such a juncture, we lose our faith in Hari and Guru. We become impatient and we fail the slightest test of our faith, of our confidence in Hari and Guru. And therefore, we negate that devotion, that bhakti. So we have to grow that bhakti. And in order to grow that bhakti, we have to elevate. We have to grow that humility, humbleness. So the point is that conceit of a devotee separates him from the grace of God and his spiritual master. And this is why the followers of other spiritual paths that are based on self-efforts are always in a danger of falling in a greater ditch of self-vanity and materialism. because such self-efforts follow vanity and pride. Pride, it develops a conceit and artfulness that restricts the grace of God and Guru. While humbleness, it develops our dedication. A devotee who is fully dependent on the grace of God and Guru is protected, has very little, almost no chance of falling away, because their trust is in the grace of God and Guru. This example that I'm about to, or the story that I'm about to relate, this account was told by Sri Maharaj Ji himself to illustrate this point about being dependent and being dedicated to one's Guru and God. A disciple was crossing a river by a boat to return to the ashram where he resided. So on that boat there were many other passengers, and among them there were some youth as well. So seeing this disciple's physical appearance, wearing a dhoti and having a crest, the youth, they began jeering and scoffing at him. However, the young man, he showed absolutely no reaction, and he just kept sitting with grounded disposition. So the other passengers, they smirked upon hearing the gibing rudeness of the youth toward this young disciple. Neither the disciple nor the passengers showed any objection whatsoever to the sneering acts of all the youth on that boat. They didn't. So the silence of the young disciple stirred heightened enthusiasm in the youth, and they began to further mock and ridicule him. So one was pulling his crest, another was making fun of his dhoti. And despite the derision from the youth, this young disciple held his ground. He held his ground and did nothing to guard himself against the repeated attacks from the youth. It even happened that one of the youth lashed out at him with a stone. His head was bleeding, but even so, he remained unmoved and did not defend himself in the least. Finally, his stop came and he got off the boat and the boat sailed off. So, shortly after the boat left the shore, what happened? It capsized. It flipped. And everyone on that boat, all the passengers, those who were taunting the young disciple, the ones who were just slyly smiling away, those who were quietly watching, and the others who were taking pleasure in watching all of whatever was going on, they all began drowning. So this disciple was devastated. And he said to the Lord, what have you done? So the Lord said, my son, Seeing your true humble nature, I couldn't resist myself. And I had to punish all of them for what they put you through. Had you shown, or if you had displayed the slightest retaliation, I know that I would not have punished them. But because you are my fully surrendered devotee, I protect my devotee. I fully protect, I take full responsibility. Ananya shintayanto mam ye janaha paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. Gita. I take full responsibility of my fully surrendered soul. So if anyone brings any harm to my fully surrendered disciple soul, it is intolerable to me, and I punish them severely, for it is my rule. So, by explaining or by narrating this account, Sri Maharaji tells us that if we wish to know how much progress or headway we have made thus far, this is the benchmark. Because forbearance and tolerance are the adornments of bhakti sadhana. A saint from Maharashtra, Chokhamela, he was a Mahar. Mahar are a community identified as untouchables and assigned a very low status in society. So Chokhamela was once in the market, and he went to run errands, and so he saw bananas. He was deeply religious, and so he saw bananas and he desired to offer them at the temple. And so when he brought the bananas and handed them to the priest, who took them initially, but then when he realized that they were given, or they were being offered by Chokhamela, he shunned them. He threw them. And he said, how could a lowly person like you even dare to come to the temple to offer? So Chokhamela quietly, he picked up the bananas and he left. When he reached home, he was drowned in this deep ocean of thought. He couldn't sleep that night. And he wasn't concerned with the insult and the mockery that he was subjected to at the temple, but he was heartbroken that he couldn't offer them. It was so much in his heart to offer them, and he couldn't. So when the priests left the temple at the end of the day, after putting God to bed, after putting Sri Krishna to bed, even Sri Krishna couldn't sleep that night. So he came to the dwelling of Chokhamela and said to Chokhamela, come on now, bring out those bananas. I'm hungry. So Chokhamela was stunned, humbled. He somehow laid himself at the feet of Sri Krishna, overwhelmed with humility, overwhelmed with the mercifulness of Sri Krishna. And he said, my Lord, my heart is so fallen and wicked. How could I even think to offer those bananas to you. So Sri Krishna said, but I didn't reject them. The priest did. Now give them to me. So he offered them to Sri Krishna, who ate them. And he took the rest back to the temple and gave them to Rukmini Ji. And he said, taste these bananas. How wonderful they are. How wonderful they taste. And so in the morning when the priests came to the temple and they opened the temple, they saw banana peels on the floor. And they knew what had happened. Oh, that Chokha Mela, this is what he has done. He has bribed Sri Krishna. So let's go. And so anyway, they went to his house to teach him a lesson. They beat him badly. But how could Sri Krishna, who is Bhakta Vatsal, one who has deep affection for his devotees, Dina Bandhu, friend of destitutes, how could he tolerate such injustice? So while the priests were away, Sri Krishna bolted the door from inside. He locked them outside, so when they returned to the temple, they saw the doors were closed. So they pleaded and begged, but to no avail. Finally, Sri Krishna said, go and bring Chokha Mela on your shoulders, and only then I will open the door. And it was then that the priests realized the bhakti, the devotion of Chokha Mela, that he wasn't what he appeared to be, because his heart was so surrendered, it was so deeply devotional. So, humility is the key to, if we wish to enslave God, humility is the way. These days, Sri Krishna devotion nowadays has become an act of showing self-superiority, observing certain devotional formalities and keeping their minds engaged in self-entertaining activities. People, in disguise in the name of devotion to Sri Krishna, they criticize each other while showing their vanity of being great devotees. But this is not Sri Krishna devotion. This is not bhakti. It is spreading materialism in the name of God and His divine name. Even in the time of Mahaprabhuji, the divine name of Sri Krishna, of God, was being commercialized in many, many hypocritical ways. And so seeing such a situation in the world, Mahaprabhuji, what did Mahaprabhuji do? He described a very specific qualification of an aspiring devotee through this verse. Some of you here might wonder, online viewers might wonder, how continuing humbleness can withstand survival in this world. How is that possible? So, we must understand that there is a difference between showing humbleness and being humble. There's a difference. Mahaprabhuji is not talking in this verse, or through this verse, he's not saying to go around flaunting humbleness. No. It's not about showing it off. No. He's talking about humbleness as a virtue, as an attribute, an inner quality of the mind and the heart. That is what he's talking about. For devotional purposes, to grow our devotion. But it's within. It's an attribute of our inner self. Something that we maintain within us. So while maintaining this virtue, how? Through sadhana, through devotion, through practice. Merely by hearing about it, talking about it, thinking about it is not going to earn us that. No, through devotion that we grow, maintain this virtue, and continue to behave in the world, in our specific situation, whatever, if the situation demands and requires certain behavior from our side, yes, of course, by all means, we have to behave in a certain way, rebuke or growl at an employee for whatever, for their mistake, yet wisdom demands that we maintain our inner self, inner calm within us, humility. So, tonight is the first lecture of my 4-part series. Starting tomorrow, I'll be elaborating on the lines of this divine pad I have chosen. So I will be exploring the meaning and explaining the meaning, expanding on the lines of this pad. Bhatkat, Thaki, Gaye, Paam, Nath, ab. So I will leave you with these thoughts. Shrimat Sadguru Sarkar ki, Shrimat Yugal Sarkar ki. We'll do just a few minutes of kirtan. Shri Radhe Radhe Govinda Radhe 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 Shri Radhe Radhe Govinda राधे
श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे
श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे
श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे
श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे
श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे
श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे
श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे
श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे
श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे
श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे
श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे
श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे
श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे
श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे
श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे
श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे
श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे
श्री राधे 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 गोविंद राधे
श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे
श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे
श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे
श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे
श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे श्री राधे राधे गोविंद राधे।
श्रीमद् सद्गुरु सरकार की, श्रीमद् युगल सरकार की जय जय श्री राधे जय जय श्री राधे जय जय श्री राधे।